the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
But I've scoured looking for additional reviews, and there's just nothing out there. Nobody cares enough to let us know that we suck or that we're rock. I don't know.
But just like anything else, you know, any artist will say, well, we do it for ourselves. But as soon as we start getting
do
reviews,
say that.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, until the reviews are not kind.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's a jerk. Doesn't know anything. Speaking of reviews, so last week we mentioned the fact that the Golden Globes were...
that was like a month ago. Now that we have this bi-weekly schedule.
Correct. Guess what? Joe Coy still owes me an apology. I didn't like his Taylor Swift joke. I'm offended.
Oh, the NFL joke.
Yeah, which is right. It's an NFL joke, not a Taylor Swift joke. The daggers that were shooting out of this woman's eyes at him as she slowly sipped her friggin' martini. I'm like, what happened to it was only a couple of years ago, Ricky Gervais would get on there and just rip these people apart. And we all thought it was hysterical. Now I can't even make a Taylor Swift comment.
So are you saying that he needs to apologize to you or she does?
I think they both do. I think they need to do a joint apology to all of us.
Yeah, because that was a pretty benign comment. It wasn't like a personal attack.
It is. Well, that's
her.
what I'm saying. It's not. And I don't like it because he's immediately gone on the defense and he's like, whoa, blame the joke writers. And I only had 10 days to prepare. Now just own it. I don't know his work, but from what I understand, he's pretty middle of the road. He's not very controversial. And he is showing up in Poughkeepsie in March. So maybe we should go and demand an in-person apology, or shake his hand for making a Taylor Swift joke. You know, that's like poking the bear. The Swifties, man, they're out in full force.
The last episode that we did when we spoke of the Golden Globes, we didn't know who was going to win yet, but best comedy / musical. I still hate that category. Hate it.
It's pretty broad.
Poor Things took it home. So. Congratulations. And
musical?
Comedy and or musical.
That's neither one of those.
No, but that could be said for pretty much every single movie that wins in that category, which is why I hate it so much. Was
Barbie even nominated?
It was. It beat Barbie. It beat Barbie.
At least in Barbie, there's dance and song sequences.
Yeah, that's why they say and or. So it doesn't have to be both, right?
So they chose a movie that's neither.
You know, again, it's like hedging bets. It's like to try to give the broadest possible scope for their award show that is missing, some may say, from the Oscars. But I think the Oscars do it right. Just it's a movie, best picture. That's it. That's all you need.
I don't know. Everyone's got a category now. You've got to categorize this. All right. Well, it doesn't matter.
Where I was going with that is if any kind of an award spurs you to see a movie, I recommend Poor Things. And then I recommend you go back and listen to our episode after you watch it.
Correct. And then be like, that doesn't fit that category at all. Wasn't a comedy, nor was it a musical.
And then your opinion didn't fit that movie either.
No, correct. We're all wrong. I don't know. Maybe we'll get canceled. We'll be hanging out with Joe Coy. Do you think he'll come on this show?
No. We're lucky if you and I show up to this show.
That is true. It is a scramble. Nobody realizes what goes on behind the scenes. We have lives, people, responsibilities, and they don't always align. But here we are
in 2024.
Oh yeah, that's right. Ooh, the far-flung future.
The far-flung future. Remember when we were kids, the year 2000 used to seem just so far off. We're going to be in flying cars and everything.
Yeah, well, Jetsons lied to us. Was it even Prince was like 1999, baby, it's coming. And it's like, yeah, okay. I don't know who out there actually survived Y2K.
All of us, actually.
We did, all of us. That's right. Come to find out, not a big deal.
So back then, back in the days of our youth, of our carefree childhood and teen years, 2000 felt far away. Nobody could even imagine 2024.
No, geez. Well, these people all did. They immediately assumed it was going to be an apocalyptic wasteland, which is not too far off.
We'll never get there. So we'll never have to explain ourselves that this is not what happened in 2024. But yet here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
And we're talking about two movies from our distant past that were set in the far-flung future of 2024. There's not too many big ones anyway, but I think we've got the biggest two. I could be mistaken.
Well, your choice was A Boy and His Dog, and I was very excited because I have never seen this.
It is a cult, and there's a reason that it's a cult movie.
Yes. This is not what I was expecting at all.
No,
this is not. 1975, though. So at least they were like, all right, 75. I mean, you're talking 50 years in the future.
And it's based on a series of stories by Harlan Ellison, who is a renowned science fiction writer, controversial in literary form as well. It was published, I think, or the stories first started coming out in 1969. Studios were optioning this out of the gate, but he turned down a few of the big names and then went with L.Q. Jones.
Who the hell is L.Q. Jones?
He's if Christina were here, she probably would be able to explain a little bit better than I could, but he was a character actor, best known for starring in Sam Peckinpah westerns. So he's a familiar face for Western fans anyway.
Okay.
Also a filmmaker, and he went in on a company with a fellow character actor, and he pitched to Harlan that he wanted the movie, and Harlan looked at a couple of his movies. He'd already made a few low-budget horror films in the early 70s. And
thought to himself, yeah, this guy's good.
He went with him. Yeah. So he went with him.
Okay. Well, I saw that Mr. Ellison had some issues with this movie after the fact.
He did. I think he has a love-hate relationship with him.
Have you ever seen interviews with him? Because I used to love watching. I think Sci-Fi Channel had a series for a while, and I've drawn a blank on what it was, but he used to show up there a lot, and he's a very opinionated man.
Apparently, from what I read leading up to our show here, he takes umbrage at being called a science fiction writer. So,
he doesn't even want to rap that, huh? Well, no. I do remember him going on a rant one day because it's Neanderthal, not Neanderthal. It's tall. And so from that day forward, I always refer to it as a Neanderthal.
Just the kind of author as a filmmaker that you want to be working with.
Yeah, yeah. And that was long before the internet where you could just sit and troll people. It's two, not two. There's two O's in there. Yeah. So we're going to be hitting up A Boy and His Dog. And we're going to go 1991. Was this 91? Yes.
It was 91.
It's been, I'm going to tell you right now, there are three different versions of this movie. So Highlander 2, which you brought to the table. This is the Renegade cut. We are watching the director's cut. And I'll tell you right now, we could go 1,000 episodes and I never would have chosen this movie. And if you go all the way, you got to go all the way back to episode 9 if you want to listen to our review of the original Highlander.
We paired that with the Queen movie, right?
Queen, yeah. Oh, it wasn't 9. I'm sorry. Hold on.
I have a feeling it was like more in the 30s or 40s.
Yes, it is, but it's a really old episode. And Highlander, I probably, if we went back today, would have given it 5 buckets. I don't remember what I gave it back then.
Go back, and because that was the second feature of that particular episode, if you find our Bohemian Rhapsody episode, that's where you're going to find our discussion on the original Highlander.
Very exciting. So that's it. So we're traveling to 2024, which means that we really don't have to go anywhere. We're here.
Right. It's an easy trip.
No DeLorean needed. We're good. So, do you want to talk a little bit of news
Sure.
before we get into this?
Sure.
Okay. So I know you're a huge zombie aficionado. You like your zombie movies. And this is the one, episode 9, we covered 28 Days Later, which was Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, zombie movie from 2002.
But it's not really a zombie movie.
It's the infected.
So that's a
now you're sounding like Harlan Ellison. It's Neanderthal. It's infected, not zombie.
Anybody who listens to this show knows that I have a problem with Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead. Mainly because he has the zombies run. So,
yes. Which I think changed the genre and everybody loves it.
So I have a real problem with that, but I do not have a problem with 28 Days Later because they're not zombies. They're infected, rage-infected people. So it makes sense, where it did not make sense to me in the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Okay. How do you feel about 28 Weeks Later?
28 Weeks Later, I think, was unnecessary, which is a word we use a lot with sequels, but it really was in this case, because it gives like 28 Days Later had like a really kind of a hopeful, upbeat ending because you love those characters and they survive. The characters don't come back in the sequel, but the hope is dashed by the end of that movie. So if you like happy endings, you're not going to like the sequel to 28 Days Later.
So you're telling me you're not looking forward to 28 Years Later?
Well, I don't know, because I've read about this as well. Okay. And the articles that I've read make it sound like there was no sequel to begin with. 28 Days Later is getting a sequel. Like, it already did. So
we're going to talk about this with Highlander, which was you can just keep going with a franchise and completely omit or not acknowledge a movie in between.
I think that's really par for the course now. Like, they made a part 2. Forget it. We're just going right back to the original.
Well, that's a Halloween or Scream. Any of these. Yeah. Long-standing. Yeah. So I guess Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, who were the director and writers of the original, they were only executive producers on that sequel, right? They didn't direct it. They're reuniting for this 28 Years Later, which is, like you said, it's a sequel to the 2002 movie. And of course, they're shopping it around to studios and streamers. So is this a new thing now? You're not attached to a studio. You're going to create something first and then shop it and be like, hey, we have this potential trilogy, this new franchise. Who wants to buy it?
Well, if you're Danny Boyle with a proven IP, then you could do that.
Yeah. So that sounds like that's what they're doing. But yeah, they're the hopes are to launch a new trilogy. So where do you go? 28 years later, then what? 28 millennia later?
28 years later, it could be like the rage virus has infected the world. So they could go from the end of the sequel 28 weeks later. It's possible.
No, I'm just talking about the title of the subsequent trilogy. You've already run out of, you went from days to weeks to years.
Yeah.
So now what's
I'm sure they don't want to lose the number 28. That's the whole thing. That's the whole
So if this
franchise.
First movie out of the gate is 28 years later, the follow-up movie 29 years later?
29 years later?
28?
Yeah. 28 years, 10 days later.
That's getting now we're getting into Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Of the remake sequel of the CG monkeys. So we'll keep an eye on that, because obviously I'm sure there's going to be studios clamoring to get that remade.
It was Fox, I think, that came out with the original. So I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And my last news article is it's officially been confirmed by StarWars.com that we are getting a Mandalorian movie. This will be directed by Jon Favreau, produced by Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy. Say what you want about her. She's still attached. She's large in charge of Lucasfilm, and Dave Filoni. And right now they are referring to it as The Mandalorian and Grogu. and it will go into production this year, 2024. I think we felt that the last season of Mandalorian was a little, well, Book of Boba Fett. Okay. Ahsoka, loved it. Mandalorian, by and large, Filoni and Favreau have really delved deep to kind of create this nerdy Star Wars universe that was right under our noses the whole time. I, as a Star Wars nerd, expect nothing less than an Heir to the Empire style Thrawn versus the Avengers battle royale. We're going to bring in all these characters that have been established that we've seen. You're going to get Mando, you're going to get Grogu, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Ezra Hera, Grief Karga, Bo-Katan, and dare I wish, Luke Skywalker and some young Padawans fighting Thrawn.
This may go into territory that Marvel is having issues with, of translating all these shows
into
the big screen.
Yeah.
So again, just like Christina would have said, to watch a movie.
Do we have a soundbite over saying this?
Yeah. To watch a movie like this, you have to have all this prior knowledge.
I think this movie is rewarding those who are watching it. And we've seen this before, going all the way back to the X-Files movie. You couldn't just walk into the theater. I mean, I guess you could, but it was an event. We all watched the X-Files. We loved the X-Files. It was a cult TV show. And when they released that first movie, you're damn right I was right there sitting in the theater.
Yeah. And I guess you could have watched that with no knowledge, but it helped you if you had the knowledge.
Right. So, I mean, this is good guys versus bad guys. Thrawn's the new trying to take over the, reestablish the Empire. Good guys got to step in. They got to band together and fight him. Do I need to know any more backstory than that? Whatever. Like I said, my Star Wars nerd brain, that's where I want it to go. Is that what I'll get? Who knows? So yeah, Mandalorian movie set for production this year. Woo! I don't know when they're talking about releasing it though, but and I'm assuming, I think Ahsoka 2 series season 2 has been approved. So they are doing a season 2. So you think that would come before the movie,
right?
As well as a potential new season of Mandalorian. I can see you're waiting there with bated breath.
Well, I wasn't that jazzed about season 3 as a Mandalorian.
No, I know that. So. I started going down that road, but yeah, I think as a whole, they could redeem themselves big time with this.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential. The seasons 1 and 2 were fantastic.
Yeah. So I think we'll have to wait and find out. That's my news.
All right. 2024, Boy and His Dog. This is a cult film, right? And so when I was coming of age back in the mid to late 80s, I was just eating up all the cinema that I could, especially cult sci-fi / horror. That was my genre. That was my niche. So I just looked into anything like in the cult section in my local video store that I could get my hands on.
Did they actually literally have a VHS section that just said cult classics?
Yeah.
Really?
They did.
I probably would have steered clear of that back in the day.
Things like Nicholas Roeg were in there, who directed Walkabout, Performance, The Man Who Fell to Earth, which is another gateway movie for me into cult things. Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's like one of the most overground cults that I can think of.
But it is. It is considered a cult film. Absolutely.
Clockwork Orange was in there. A Boy and His Dog was very interesting to me because it had Don Johnson, who, as we all know, in the 80s was a megastar.
Yeah.
Thanks to Miami Vice and his single Heartbeat. Lest not we forget Heartbeat.
Oh, how could we forget? How could we forget? I think every one of these guys who ended up with, Bruce Willis cut an album.
Yeah.
Everybody got an album when you got a TV or movie deal.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It was part of the contract. So anyway, I picked it up one day. I was probably mid-teens when I first saw it on VHS. I had my own little VCR and my own little TV set. So I was watching these all unbeknownst.
Cult of One.
Yes.
At that time.
And so I put it in. And since I was a huge Road Warrior fan, this is a post-apocalyptic survival story.
Yeah.
The Road Warrior, I think, and Mad Max owe a lot to this. And I think I saw that when I first saw this movie.
Because I will tell you, watching this right up front, I said, wow, this is a poor man's Mad Max. And then I realized this was George Miller's inspiration for Mad Max and Road Warrior. Yeah. So this came first. Yeah.
I loved the repartee between Blood, the dog, and Vic, or Albert, as Blood calls him. So it's like that they're a comedy team. So those two aspects, the sci-fi setting and the relationship between the two, were what sold me. So
I'll agree with you on that. This is a movie that definitely rewards you for watching subtitles, because the back and forth between these two is comical.
Yeah.
It's very funny, but I'm halfway through this movie and I'm like, this is billed as a comedy? Because it's and there were points where I actually had to go back and rewind. I watched the entire movie in one sitting and then got up the next morning and rewatched the last 10 minutes, because I'm like, I think I missed something. And then boy, did I miss something. I was like, okay, and now it's not really spelled out for you, but because again, my hearing's not the best. And sometimes I watch a movie and I guess I was half paying attention to the last 5 minutes. But I will tell you, so I'm assuming you have this on some Criterion edition, super high res.
I do not, as a matter of fact, because I think I've outgrown it. Just like Clockwork Orange, I used to really appreciate that when I was younger. And then, as I get older, I realize
I was going to say, you grow up and you're like, this is...
Yeah, this is not something that I should be admiring per se.
I mean, we talk about this all the time, which is, certain movies are a product of their time. There's some very gratuitous scenes going on here. But I will tell you, if you try and watch this on Tubi, it is literally ripped from a VHS tape. It's a Shout Factory edition, and I'm watching the first 3-4 minutes, and it's not widescreen. It's old school square analog. It looks like crap, and I'm like, we used to watch movies like this and didn't know any better.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I can't. Well, I couldn't even watch the opening titles because they were so fuzzy, and I'm like, if this is the best that's out there, I'm in trouble.
Well, that's funny because I watched it on Freevee. And it was letterboxed and looked perfect.
Yeah, I ended up finding it on another platform as well. But the Tubi transfer is right off of VHS tape. I couldn't believe it, because in this day and age where everything we're watching streaming is cleaned up and letterboxed, I actually had to stretch my television to get it to even kind of fill the screen. And I was like, I can't watch this. So I was glad that I found it on another platform.
Yeah. And it is, as you say, it is available on Shout Factory on Blu-ray. So I think that's what Freevee was basing what they have on their platform from. So it opens with, very Mad Max-ish kind of thing, like a backstory. World War IV lasted 5 days. And apparently there was a World War III.
Well, I actually questioned, because so early on, the dog Blood is giving a massive exposition because he's quizzing Vic on the history of history. So I'm like, all right, I need to pay attention. And this is where, subtitles would have come in very handy, because he's making him name presidents. Mm-hmm. And he gets to Kennedy. And he says Kennedy's name 3 times. Is he implying that Kennedy was president?
Well, no. He gets to Ford. And then after Ford, he names Kennedy 5 times. So it wasn't JFK that is referring to, another Kennedy member.
Okay. Oh, see? How am I supposed to know that?
Yeah.
I need cliff notes for this movie.
Because he says Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and then Kennedy,
gotcha.
Kennedy.
I missed that. Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
So is it Ted? Is it somebody else? We don't know.
We don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, apparently Don Johnson doesn't know either. Oh, by the way, Don Johnson, 26 years old when he made this movie. Not a boy.
He looks like he's 13.
He does look like a child, but he is a man.
I didn't look up to see how old he was, but he looks like a teenager. I think he's supposed to be 17 or 18. The character.
Yeah, no, not. Okay, yeah.
World War IV takes place. I was a little bit fuzzy on that. Either 2006 or 2007.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like a good 7 years or whatever, or no longer than that they were out here in this.
Yeah, so it's just a wasteland. And they also, if you pay attention to the dialogue, they are in Phoenix, Arizona, is where this takes place. And this is more of a budgetary thing, I'm sure, than anything else. The war has covered the entire landscape in mud and dirt. So all of civilization is now underground. So that's why these characters are pillaging like holes in the ground, because that's how they get to the buildings, is they have to burrow down to get into whatever the cities were. So again,
is this the Hollow Earth theory from Godzilla?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
That's a good idea. We should probably use that for the monsters.
But the interesting thing about this is that once Mad Max and especially the Road Warrior became hits, the Road Warrior was released in 81. This movie, A Boy and His Dog, was re-released in 1982.
Oh, interesting.
And initially, it didn't have that opening with the nuclear explosions. It just opened with Vic and Blood. But I think maybe to tie it into this zeitgeist that was happening in cinema.
That is now, which we all kind of take that for granted now that we're going to get these post-apocalyptic tales of man destroying ourselves. But this is the OG right here, I guess.
Yeah. So we open with the pair of Vic and Blood, and it's not explained. They are just talking to each other telepathically. They have kind of an agreement. Blood, who is the dog, sniffs out women for Vic to assault, which is reprehensible, right?
Yeah,
I am not saying
right.
It's not.
So I was gonna say, right. So you want to root for this guy, and immediately you're like, oh, this is why you have a dog.
And in return, Vic gives the dog food. It's apparent right away that they are connected, that there is an emotional bond between them.
And my question immediately was, are all dogs psychic?
Well, the other dogs are shown in the movie, and it's also the character of Vic says at a few points. When they're in that movie theater and Blood says there's a female in here, well, let's find her before another dog sniffs her out. So a little bit later on, when Quilla June and Vic are talking, he tries to explain to her, saying, well, Blood and I have a feeling. It's difficult to say. I don't know if Blood could talk to anybody else.
Not to give anything away, but Blood gets in a dog fight, literally a dog fight, but it's not like the two dogs are talking to each other. Like, dude, like you could just talk it out. It's like, listen, hold on. Whoa. Stop attacking me.
Right.
Let's just talk this out. No, it's a straight up dog fight. So it's interesting because again, I'm watching this and I'm like, this dog's a better actor than Don Johnson. Mm-hmm. This dog is amazing because Don Johnson is talking at this dog the entire time. And even though the dog's not talking, it's not like Mr. Ed where they're putting peanut butter in his lips and you can see, making it look like he's faking it.
That's actually what they wanted to do. And that's why Ellison turned down Warner Brothers and all the big studios, because they wanted a talking dog.
So Scooby-Doo, basically.
Yeah.
Which was big at that time. So it would have been, ruh-roh, Rick, there's a woman over there. So thankfully they didn't go that route. But this dog is phenomenal. This dog is actually a damn good actor.
Well, I told you last week, this is Tiger.
I know. And he actually broke character at the end of the movie. He calls him Tiger.
Yeah.
That is the dog's name. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you right now, this dog was very impressive.
The funny thing about this is that L.Q. Jones would agree with you that he was so impressed by the dog's acting on set that he and Ellison planned a sequel called A Girl and Her Dog.
I read this.
And he wanted Tiger back, but then Tiger unfortunately passed away and he didn't want to do the sequel anymore because he didn't have Tiger.
Which blows my mind. It's like 9 different dogs played Lassie. You can't get one other dog to take over the role of this Blood.
Nope. No, well, you said it yourself. You said it yourself. An amazing performance by Tiger.
No, listen, well played there, Tiger. Because that should be a new category at the Golden Globes.
It should, and this should win every single year. But,
I love it. And once again, Tiger.
Yeah,
posthumously, he's got 200 statuettes. Yeah.
But apparently, the Tiger's trainer, I don't know how they did it, but it's just a throwaway line that I read that he transferred authority to Johnson. Somehow he made Tiger think that Johnson was his trainer.
It was his trainer. Yeah.
So he's looking to Johnson for cues rather than looking off screen at the trainer.
Because he is looking. He's got the direct eye line sight to Johnson whenever he's talking to him, and even like that scene, they get in that massive dog fight. And this dog lives up to his name because he is bloody, but he breaks his leg and he's walking around on 3 legs with his front paw up. And I read that they had a rubber bandit to keep it up there. But I'm like, and this dog's a trooper. This is like Dino with 3 broken legs, you know.
And then to address, because during that scene, Vic is walking away from him because he's got it in his head that he's going to follow Quilla June because she's run off, and we find out later that she's been sent to trap him. But Blood is trying to tell him this. Aren't you at least a little bit suspicious? And he's chasing him, limping, and then he runs around him to get in front of him, and then stops in front of him to talk to him. Right. And the acting here is perfectly syncing with what the voiceover, what's supposed to be Blood, is being.
So I wonder if this guy who did the guy who did the voiceover, Tim McIntyre, who also sang the theme song, by the way. The end credits. In the end credits. I wonder if he was on set.
I don't know.
This. Someone has to be feeding Johnson dialogue,
right?
Because you still, like you said, you still need the tempo, you still need the pacing to all click in. But you know, this is like Michael Caine acting to Muppets. Like, he took it seriously. He's talking to that dog, and you know, the relationship between these two is phenomenal. And like you said, there's a lot of little zingers that get thrown that it just kind of goes over your head because, again, a lot of times you're not watching their face. He's walking in the desert. There's the long shots. Where are we going with it?
Yeah.
Where are we going with this?
Well, speaking of the zingers, like, the dog is constantly insulting Johnson's character.
As well he should.
He's not
smart. The dog is the smart one. The dog is the smart one.
At one point, he says, "You're a putz." And he's like, "What's a putz? Is that bad?" Yeah. But it sets the landscape. It doesn't explain it right away. You're just thrust into the story, and they're already talking to each other telepathically.
Which I like.
Yeah.
You just have to pick up the pace and be like, all right, what's going on? And they do, like you said, the dog gives him a little bit of exposition in trying to explain to him, you know, ask him why does this guy need to know why the world is the way it is? Because no one else gives a crap.
Right.
It's not like he has to pass a history test. When they come across the little oasis there with the movie theater, here's a can of beets. And the guy's like, what's
the
this?
Guy can't read.
He goes, peaches. He goes, oh, okay. And I'm like, you're in the apocalypse, so why would it matter anyways?
Right.
Beets may be the most glorious thing you're going to eat that day.
Although, you know, it was established that the war took place in 2006, 2007. This was an older guy, so you would assume that he was alive then, and he learned to read. So
he did learn, yeah. I did have to laugh though. So the cost of a movie was a can of sardines and a can of beets. But I'm like, my wife will throw away a can of corn that's 2 weeks expired. So she would not survive the apocalypse at all. She's like, I'm not eating 2007. I'm not eating that. I'm eating like a king. I am pulling sandwiches out of garbage cans. So
we get the bad news in this movie right up front because Johnson is known in the movie as a solo. So it's just him and his dog living off the land, whatever they can. And he has to avoid both rover packs, which are just people like him, but in packs.
Yeah.
And also screamers, which are apparently mutated monsters that unfortunately you never get to see.
No, we don't get to see them, which is very disappointing.
So we open with Johnson asking Blood to sniff him out a woman, and a rover pack has gotten to her before he can. Unfortunately, you see the aftermath of what the rover pack do to her. So I think, you know, even though Johnson's character of Vic is using Blood to do this, you never actually see the character assault a woman. So he's always stymied. He's always stymied. He's like stymied in one way or another.
Yeah.
I think that is for me as a younger me, that made it more acceptable, like that he was just like kind of incompetent at this and maybe
Right, because
not made for this world, you know?
right, because the one time when he does consummate with the girl, it does
It's
seem
because
like
of her. It's
yeah, I was gonna say
her.
she's complicit. She's completely
Yeah. She ends up seducing
taken
him.
Yeah.
And in a few ways, she's probably the strongest character
Yeah.
in the movie because she's driving the events from like, you know, about halfway through to the end. She's driving the plot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, she's got nefarious. It gets to a point where you think it's going a certain way, and then it becomes something completely different.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what am I watching here?
But the dog is also calling him out on his lustfulness, like every step of the way. Like
but he's still helping him.
He's still helping him, but I think just to survive, because as we see, the Vic is such a jerk. He's threatening like to not feed the dog if he doesn't help him, or I'll leave you behind.
I think that dog would have survived on his own.
I think the dog would have survived on his own.
And Vic just got him in trouble. Oh, I got to fight that dog. Now I got to leave you. Yeah.
So as you said, this society has like a little oasis in the middle of the desert where they call it going into town. Where
it's not really a town, but
no,
but it's in there.
And it's just men that inhabit this world.
Well, she was smart because she's disguised as a guy.
Yeah.
At one point, does society just cease to exist because you're killing all the women?
I know, because and some of these are like kids or boys. I'm like, well, who birthed these kids?
Right, correct. You're right. Yeah. Because they're not keeping the women for continued pleasures. I mean, these guys, they slaughtered that girl. So yeah, I'd be hiding too.
So on their way to the town, Vic is still asking the dog, okay, do you smell any women now? And he's like, nope, I smell no female within my range. However, I'll tell you a suggestive story.
It's like Google. Siri, tell me a naughty tale. Oh, so, no, hold on. Did you try again? I just said Siri and it came on my phone.
Oh.
I muted you.
So during these opening scenes, every once in a while, you'll see shots of people watching Vic from a distance. And all you see is their legs and their feet. And, oh, yeah, he'll do nicely. He'll do nicely for our purposes. So he's being watched by these men in black, for lack of a better term. So you know that there's these nefarious characters out there that are kind of pulling the strings.
Everybody's nefarious.
Yeah. But these guys aren't like your run-of-the-mill kind of wasteland denizens. They're dressed in nice pants and shoes, and he just might do, one of them says. So the cut to this oasis, this movie theater out in the middle of nowhere. What it is are like ancient stag films that these men sit there and watch in silence. So it's a grim...
of rawhide. Yeah, that is a 1950s stag film. You are correct. But what's funny is it makes me laugh. It's like, so celluloid film somehow survives in a nuclear apocalypse, but not DVDs. I guess DVDs didn't really exist.
Yeah, they didn't exist back then.
These creepy old men just sitting around watching this movie.
Yeah, and you think that they could get newer movies, their hands on newer movies. I'm like, it was probably tough to get your hands on these movies before the war, and how did they survive? You know?
These are a very eclectic, somebody's collection they stumbled across.
I was never sure. So you say that was actually a movie. I wasn't sure if they filmed these for this movie if they got these.
I'm simply going off the fact that there was a title called Fistful of Rawhide. It did seem pretty dated if they went and actually filmed this just for this movie.
Because there's one scene, a cowboy comes through a door and he shoots somebody that's sleeping with his girl. That is L.Q. Jones. So that was filmed for this movie.
Then maybe that is. Maybe this whole thing was all staged.
So regardless, Vic
we're caught up in the stag film.
Yeah. So Vic and Blood are watching the movies, right? With a bunch of other grim, solos there that are all like their faces all dusted up.
And they're all getting horned up.
Desert.
It's bad enough they can't find women. Now they're just watching this stuff getting all horned up.
So, and Vic is mad that Blood can't find another girl with his nose. So he denies him popcorn. And you just feel bad for this dog being stuck with this kid. So Blood suddenly smells a girl in the movie theater. And Vic's like, where? There's no girl in here. So they suss out that it's somebody dressed like a guy. and follow her back. And Blood finally gets a little bit of popcorn. Like Vic allows it once he realizes that Blood is still doing his job. And they follow the girl back. He's got to fight off another rover band once he finds her, and fight off screamers. And now, so this is the almost you get like a monster. Unfortunately, you don't get it, probably because of budgetary reasons, I'm sure. But Vic follows this. We later find out her name is Quilla June, follows her down to an abandoned high school because it looks like it's a gymnasium where they have a bunch of beds set up. Maybe it's a bomb shelter. Who knows?
Yeah.
Follows her down and grabs her. As he's threatening her, she's asking him, like, what's your mother's name? What's your father's name? Catching him off guard, right? And making him talk to her. So as this conversation is going on, this other band of rovers comes in that also have sniffed her out because they have a dog. Yeah. And then you mentioned before there's a big dog fight between Blood and the dog who is a German Shepherd. Yeah. I think he's a German Shepherd.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with it. Yeah.
And it looks like a pretty vicious dog fight, like in reality.
They are really going at it. And I did read that they had muzzles on and like little things on their paws so they didn't scratch each other up.
Yeah.
But makeup wise, Blood he survived. So I guess.
I mean, how did they get them to really go at it? Like, did they whisper in one dog? Right. They whispered in one dog's ear. He says that you're an asshole. Yeah. Right. He said what?
he says Brady Bunch sucks, dude. What?
Let me at him. Let me at him.
Your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty vicious.
Blood afterwards, the other gang runs away because Vic has the idea of impersonating one of these screamers these are the mutant monsters that everybody is afraid of.
This is Obi-Wan in the desert.
Yeah, it is.
Great dragon call.
And there's a little bit of exposition about what these screamers are. They're probably mutated. If you touch one, you die. And I think that's how Vic and Blood met, is that Blood saved him from a screamer. I don't know if that's how they met, but it is said that Blood saved him at one point from a screamer. They chase the bad guys away, but then an actual screamer shows up. And all you get from the screamer is like green lights. You see green lights come down into this auditorium that they're in, and they have to hole up. She's aggressive towards him as soon as they hole up, and she makes it seem like she's thankful that she has been saved. Yeah. And
I was like, are they gonna let the dog watch?
And they do. The dog is sitting right there, and the dog is talking to Vic the entire time.
I think he does at one point either turn around but I'm like, there's an obvious doggy style joke in here somewhere, but I'll refrain myself. Yeah, this is very salacious and titillating in certain ways because obviously,
they do it multiple times, and she always is the instigator. And Vic is smitten. You can tell that he's smitten by her.
Why wouldn't you be? He's just been hanging out with a dog for the last couple of years.
So as Blood is like licking his wounds, Vic has this idea that now Quilla June is going to come with them on their quest, because Blood has said a few times already that they're going to the Over the Hill, which is like the fantasy world, which also carries over into your Road Warrior, because that's what they want to see as well. Yeah. That there's still a paradise out there somewhere that's untouched.
Just beyond the shield.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now Vic wants her to come along, and him and Blood are having this argument like that she can't come along. The dog is saying that she's just going to weigh us down.
It's another mouth to feed.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have people tracking her, drawing attention to yourself.
There's a subtext here that he's jealous, that he doesn't want her to take all the attention away from him.
Well, sure. It's only been the two of them. Now all of a sudden you got a third wheel.
His mind is made up. He runs back into the little hole that they've set themselves up in this auditorium to tell Quilla June that she's going to come, and she smacks him right in the head
wow.
with a flashlight and knocks him out. So he wakes up, she's long gone, and Blood is like laughing at him. Blood made no attempt to stop her because he's glad she's gone. He doesn't want to be stuck with her, right? She can't make it more plain as to what she wants to do, because Vic has been telling her that he wants her to come along to the Over the Hill. She's telling him that she's from the Down Under, where they have societies underground, and that she wants him to come back there. He's like, no, I'm not going down there, even though he's never been. She lays him out, leaves a card to get into the Down Under, like one of those security cards. Yeah. So that's all he needs to see. He grabs that card and he's chasing her. And this is where Blood is trying to reason with him, like, no, don't go down there.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Stupid idiot thinking with his pants.
He's like, even if it's not a trap, they're going to kill you as soon as you go down there. Too many rovers have raided them. Their defenses are going to be up. You cannot go down there. It's like, nope, I'm going to get her. So there's a really sad scene where the dog stops because he's not going to go down there with him, because there's like a door. It's almost like one of those slee stack pyramids in the middle.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the middle of the desert. Yeah.
Might have been the same prop around the same time.
It's like just like a set of elevator doors in the middle of the desert, and he's got the key code for it. Blood stops short of following Vic. He's like, I'll really miss you, Vic. Vic has just got her on his mind. So he does turn around. He says, I'll try to be back as soon as I can. I understand if you go on without me to over the hill.
Is that the equivalent of like a puppy farm?
Vic is like trying to tell him that he'll be back, and Blood's like, you're not coming back. As the doors close and Blood, the last thing you hear is so long, partner. It's a very sad scene.
It is sad because the dog is all torn apart from the dog fight.
And this is the only character that you like so far in the movie.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And he's covered in blood and you're just abandoning him. Now, if I was one of these Reavers or one of these bad guys, I just hang out in front of that door, wait for people to come up and eat them.
Yeah, it's true. Nobody is. There's nobody within sight. There's nobody within sight around these doors.
No, that's a missed opportunity, right?
Unless they've just built up a fear where, like, just these people come out and kidnap.
These people are not fearful. Well, they're fearful, but in a much different way.
Suddenly, we're into the second half of this movie, and it's like the movie is really broken into two parts, like in the wasteland and in the Down Under.
Yeah, this is almost like a completely different movie.
Yeah. So he has to climb down what looks like a missile silo and go through like a whole series of doors and passageways until he comes upon this.
It's like the opening to Get Smart.
It's like the opening to Get Smart, but then he finds the Down Under, and it's like outside, inside.
That's what I'm saying. This is like the Hollow Earth, and you're just like, what is going on here? Because now I'm like on a parallel world or something.
He comes upon like a lush green grass lawn, like a hill. There's a cemetery, but it's always nighttime. So you see the floodlight. So they've built all this underground, but he gets grabbed immediately. And the next thing you see is him getting a forced bath, and all these people wearing clown makeup are surrounding him. And like this huge guy in overalls and like a hee-haw outfit.
Yes.
Just, got a back scrubber, and he's scrubbing them, scrubbing all the lice off of them so he can, it's like your decontamination scene from Dr. No.
Yeah, but they're all wearing this Joker makeup.
Yeah.
Which is just very disconcerting.
And they're all taking notes and they're all looking at him. It's almost like night and day. Like literally it is like you're going from daytime to nighttime. But the fact that you've got like no colors, really, it's all washed out in the wasteland. Suddenly everything is bright and colorful down here, right down to their faces, the makeup.
Right.
There's a barbershop quartet that's singing. There's a whole like little town.
There's a marching band. It's really bizarre.
They call it Topeka, this underground. It's run by Topeka's in Kansas, but they're in Arizona.
Right.
It's run by Jason Robards. He's like the head of the board or whatever down there.
I just refer to him as the Grand Wizard.
So when you're introduced to him, soon after Vic gets his bath, he's judging all these townsfolk that are brought before him as not conforming. And he's to the farm, all of them. So I guess the farm means that they're executed and a story's made up, like to tell the rest of the people, like what happened to them.
Oh, we all know what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fool us.
So after Vic gets his bath and he's dressed up in the same overalls as this hee-haw guy, he sees a little dog and tries to talk to him. Right. You don't know if there's actually was a conversation because you don't hear what this dog says to Vic, if anything.
That would have been interesting, actually.
But they bring the dog in to get judged. Oh, he talked to the stranger.
Dog's like, no, he didn't.
And so they kill the dog. So immediately, as soon as they killed it, well, they don't kill the dog on screen. They farm the dog, like to the farm. So now you hate Jason Robards. Like, so there's nobody you like in this movie except for Blood. It's very quickly revealed that the reason that Quilla June even was up
Ooh.
overground to begin with, was to lure Vic down.
Yeah.
Because their men cannot reproduce down under. They've been underground for too long. So every once in a while they need new blood. And Vic was the perfect candidate.
Why is he the perfect candidate?
I don't know.
Do you care what his, and you're killing all the people anyway. So I guess you got to just keep repopulating this world.
Yeah, you're shipping off everybody to the farm. So
they
you need more people.
They hook him up to a milking machine.
But as soon as Vic hears that we need you to repopulate our women, or
Woohoo!
He's like, woo, I've hit the jackpot.
Hell yeah. Thank you very much. No, that's not how it goes.
So yeah, the next scene is you see him actually hooked up to some milking machine that's
I don't know.
Taking his seed like through a machine and marrying all these young women that are coming up to his bed, and there's like a weird wedding ceremony for each one because
where did they get all these wedding gowns?
I don't know.
Was there like an emporium that they took down there with them? Because there had to have been 30 women all dressed in wedding gowns. That's a lot of wedding gowns.
That's
are they
that's
marrying
a lot of
him, or are they just buying his seed?
No, they're just buying because they've said that they are set to actually marry other boys in this community.
Okay, so they weren't there to all marry him. They were just they're all getting married. This is like 7 brides for 7 brothers.
It's just like really kind of like a ceremony.
Your wedding day's today? My wedding day is today.
Yeah.
You couldn't have picked another day, and then we just get a big cat fight.
They're, I'm sure, inseminated later at some point.
Here's a turkey baster. Have at it. It was nice to see that Simon and Garfunkel survived the apocalypse because they were there.
Yeah, lots of sideburns down below in Topeka.
Well, listen, we had to make room for all the wedding dresses. We couldn't bring razors.
So it's said that 35 brides are there in line. So Vic has a lot of work to do. Vic in this machine.
I don't even know how he ran away. I'd be exhausted.
Yeah, well, he was. Yeah.
He's like, can I get a minute?
But yeah, so it's also said that once the 35 are impregnated, that Vic will be killed. He'll be farmed off. So Quilla June, who brought Vic down here for this whole scenario, actually brought him with other plans in mind. She wants to take over the committee. So she agreed to bring Vic down here, but the only reason she agreed, so he would kill the committee. So she thought that he would have no issues with this.
I was gonna say she didn't think to actually run this by him beforehand.
No.
Oh, yeah, by the way, now that you're completely milked, kill those people.
He might have actually gone through with it when he was smitten with her back in the auditorium or whatever.
Now it seems that she duped him.
Right.
Like I wouldn't buy her plan. It's like, no, I meant to bring you down here the whole time to help me. What? I don't think so.
So Quilla June has a little resistance force of other teenagers that help her get Vic out of the hospital. And her plan is to have Vic go get his gun from wherever they hid it and to kill the committee. And he's having none of this. He wants to leave immediately. So that's what he does. And you see this hee-haw guy that was giving Vic the bath earlier. Apparently he's a robot. Because
this doesn't make any sense. I referred to him as Hillbilly Michael Myers because that's basic. And I'm like, he's a robot? Like, what the?
And he does the committee's dirty work. So that's why Jason Robards and the gang are not afraid at all, because they've got this guy to protect them.
No, and he even says to him, go get another Michael out of the closet or something, out of the garage. So they have multiple robots that they're dressing like friggin' Junior Sample from Hee Haw, as you mentioned.
So as Quilla June is trying to convince Vic to come back and kill the committee, this robot is killing all the other teenage rebels. And he's doing so by grabbing their neck and squeezing it until the blood starts pouring out of their mouth. So this was a pretty graphic sequence. So Michael kills like 2 or 3 kids or teenagers before he starts going after Vic and Quilla June. And Quilla June now realizes that all of her rebels are dead, and she has no choice but to leave with Vic.
Crap.
So
that plan right out the window.
So Vic shoots Michael because he's getting very close to them as they're trying to escape. Shoots him multiple times until finally he shoots out his leg from under him. And then you see all the sparks and you see the thing explode. And then you realize it's a robot because you didn't know that
up to that
until
point,
then.
you don't realize that. No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, are they all robots? What is going on here?
Yeah. And then Jason Robards says to the committee, let's get another Michael out of the warehouse. So,
but meanwhile, while this chase is unfolding, and it's shot really nice, there's lights coming through the trees, the backlit or whatnot. Jason Robards is over like the loudspeaker giving out cooking channel advice. Like,
I don't think that was him over the loudspeaker.
Oh, it wasn't?
It was just some voiceover. But
it was just like, it just becomes, once you're down here, it's just a completely different movie. They don't explain anything. Why are they wearing makeup? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you put your robot in makeup? It was bizarre. And then Vic, he looked like he was coming right out of a Duran Duran video by the end of it with the bandolier. I'm like, he's going to hunt. He's hungry for the wolf.
But I think everybody's wearing clown makeup just because of a forced happiness down below. Like if you break,
okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Everything's good and cheery down here.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you were like Quilla and you went above and you saw what you had to experience, you'd be like, yeah, no, I'm happy down here. Yeah. I'm really happy. Tell me what to do. I am groovy.
But Vic isn't like that. He's like, I have to get dirty just so I can feel clean again, he said at one point as he was trying to escape.
This is an alien world. Yeah. I mean, he was a child. If you're telling me that, World War IV was in 2000, early 2000s, he would have been, I don't know, born right around that time. So he doesn't know a world like this.
And so this is also where there's a throwaway line here that maybe you caught or you didn't. I only caught it on this viewing because I had the subtitles on. That one of the committee members says to Jason Robards, only 10 recipients have been serviced, meaning the brides.
Oh.
We need another donor. So that's the last bit of dialogue that they say before Jason Robards says, we need another Michael out of the warehouse. So we've got 10 little Vics then, that means, in the underground. So
were they setting up a sequel?
They were a girl and her dog.
Just had a girl, but the dog would just be like, I smell a girl. That's me. Mm-hmm. I smell another girl. No. It's me. Would this dog been able to sniff out men?
I think, well, from what I read, the sequel would have been like a girl warrior of the wasteland kind of a thing. So, and they would have made it to over the hill.
This still boggles my mind that they just completely abandoned it once this dog died. This dog was so primed for this role that you couldn't find another dog.
I guess that the director was spoiled by this dog.
Listen, I think Dick York was available. You really could have just brought him in. No one would have known the difference.
But you are primed. Once they come out the door, the Sleestack door, and they're back in the wasteland at the very end of the movie, they've escaped.
Lock the door.
Down under.
Just lock that door from the outside.
They actually spend all night outside that door. Nobody comes after them.
No. The dog's laying out there the whole time.
Yeah, the dog's near death. The dog apparently never... Well, no, the dog does say that he left. He went into town, and that guy that you see in the beginning, who's like the poor man's Lord Humongous from the Road Warrior, has taken over the town. So the dog can't even stay in the town because now
Fellini?
It's taken over.
I think his name was Fellini.
Yeah, his name was Fellini. He looked like Bluto from Popeye.
Well, blow me down. And he says, have you eaten? I ate a lizard.
Yeah.
Yesterday, maybe it was the day before.
This is where Vic calls him Tiger.
Yeah.
So where are we going to go now? How about over the hill, Tiger?
A little nod.
An homage to the Brady Bunch or the dog's background.
I call my kid Tiger.
So Quilla June is now giving Vic an ultimatum. Like, we can't bring this now. Like, Quilla June is telling Vic the same line that the dog was telling him earlier. We can't bring this dog with us. You can't even walk. Yeah, you're going to have to say goodbye.
I love you. Let's leave that dog.
So you're primed for a very unhappy ending here, right? Because Vic, up until this point, hasn't really shown that he's cared a lot for Blood.
The dog.
But the next morning, Quilla June is nowhere to be seen.
And again, I had to watch this scene twice because I watched the end of the movie. I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and I'm going, I think I missed something. So I did go back and put the subtitles on because, you think he's going to leave with the girl and we're just going to leave the dog there. And you cut to the next morning. There's a little campfire going. You full, buddy? You want some more? No, I'm stuffed. I'm good. All right, we got to go.
And they head off, just Vic and Blood. I'm like, well, where's Quilla June?
Yeah.
And then there's a line of dialogue at the
she
end.
told me, he said something like, she told me she loved me. He goes, well,
The line is, she had marvelous judgment, if not particularly good taste. And then they laugh. Yeah.
So they ate her.
So they ate her, or at least Blood did.
And that one, you don't think that Vic partook? He was probably famished after all that milking, running away from robots.
So this is the line that Harlan Ellison had an issue with.
This is the line that made me love this movie.
Yeah. So the ending is the same in the book. They eat the girl. So that's not what he had an issue with.
He didn't like the snarky line?
He didn't like the snarky line because in the end of his book, Vic and the dog, I didn't read the actual line in the book, but they profess their love for each other. Like, I know what love really is, I think Vic says to Blood, or something to that effect. So it's a serious line at the end. So you know that now Vic cares just as much for Blood as Blood cares.
I think killing the girl and feeding her to him shows that just as much. And it's keeping in line with the tone of the two characters that are established in the movie. I don't need to say, I love you. I just showed you I love you.
And the dog actually says before that line, I really appreciate this, Vic.
And that's about as far as you're going to get with an I love you line.
And apparently this was edited because this scene actually did show them eating parts of her.
Yeah, no, it's left. Yeah, I don't need to see that, but I thought it was a nice little twist, funny ending.
Yeah, although it's, misogynistic. Yes, completely.
Well, it's the apocalypse.
So it is humorous, but you feel guilty at the same time for Chuck.
I don't feel guilty
because they made her character kind of the villain, the mustache twisting villain. But again, I think that her character is probably the most well-rounded of anyone. She was ambitious. Yes, she was ambitious.
Yeah, she was ambitious. I want you to come down and completely take out the regime that's in order here.
Yeah.
And to what end? And then they would all live happily and take their makeup off, I guess.
Yeah. Perhaps, yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll never find out.
But there you have it. Boy and His Dog. It was not a commercial success.
What? I'm shocked.
It was seen as a low-budget B movie when it was released.
But you're right. It has cult status. I know of it. I knew of it. I've never seen this.
Yeah.
So
now you have.
Yeah, now I have.
Only cost $400,000 to make.
Wow.
I don't know what it made box office wise. Maybe it didn't even make that back, but it played continuously over the next 15 years in many midnight movie locations.
There you go. That's how it gets cult status.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for bringing this to the table because I probably would never have seen this. So it's not perfect by any means. It's actually it's a bit tough to get through in points, and it's twisted in a very bizarre way. I'm assuming that they were trying to go for some over-the-top social commentary on this Down Under, but it clearly most of it went over my head. It's just a bizarre movie, but you should check it out.
Yeah,
just to say I saw it, and yeah, it's stupid.
I still appreciate it because it's just like an early post-apocalyptic movie that took place 4 years before Mad Max.
Yeah.
And then it really, really influenced The Road Warrior, I think even more so than Mad Max. But then after Mad Max, and that just blew open the doors. You saw these movies all the time in the 80s, movies just like this.
Sure.
With this kind of a background. So I applaud it just for being one of the forerunners of that genre.
And bringing us Don Johnson.
I don't know if I was trying to find an interview with him where he talks about this and I couldn't. I don't know if he denies it or.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever see the interviews with the dog? What did he have to say?
Yeah, I animated lips on the dog so he could actually speak.
So that's sad, though, that he died. It must have been he died shortly after this.
Yeah. I think he was older at the time that this was made. So.
Yeah, I mean, they did grunge him up. He didn't look quite like the fluffy tiger that's in the Brady Bunch.
Right.
But then again, he's living in a post-apocalyptic world where only if you get abducted do you get a bath.
Yeah. A forced bath by a Terminator, no less. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things to find reprehensible about it, but I also think that there's a lot of things to admire about it. So I'm going to go 3.5 buckets on this.
Okay. Which is pretty high for you.
Yeah.
And I was curious because I know that, you talk a lot about, watching your 4:00 movies. And I'm like, there is no way they showed this at the 4:00.
No, I never saw this on TV.
Okay.
I had to actually rent
this. A VHS, which makes sense. Like I said, if you go and check out Tubi, just to watch the opening VHS crawl, I'm like, this is such a throwback. And it's anybody now who watches movies, I mean, YouTube 4K, we're spoiled.
Yeah. And this was so cult that even as far as I know, they never even showed it on HBO or any of those cable channels. Again,
they were too highbrow for this.
Yeah.
So I'm going 3. I'm going 3 buckets on this.
Okay.
So not as high as you, but this is my first viewing, and it is a sight to behold.
Yeah. Anybody who walked into this thinking that it was a kids movie, I really feel sorry for them. Yeah.
Well, that's like walking in to go see Poor Things.
Yeah.
Thinking you're going to get a comedy. If it won a comedy musical, it's like, oh, we should go see this. There are comedic elements, but that's, yeah. So, wow. So there we go. So we're going to stay in 2024, right?
We are, but first we're going to go to the concession
stand. Are going to the concession stand. And so I like to try and pair up these concession treats thematically. This is not, there's no way I couldn't really find anything that lined up with these movies. Except for the fact, if you watch early on in this movie, there is a Maxwell House coffee can.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember. Yep.
Okay. In Highlander 2, there is a Hill Brother coffee can. So apparently coffee cans can survive into the far-flung future.
Okay.
They don't degrade or whatever. So what's the closest thing I could think of that could survive a nuclear war or depletion of our ozone layer, as what's going to happen in Highlander 2? Bottle caps.
Oh. You see, I thought you were going to go Yoo-hoo when you started talking that route, because I think that drink can survive. I think I've read that.
Probably could. It probably like opened, unopened.
It would have to be sealed, obviously, but
yeah. I don't know. If I found one laying around, I'd probably take a swig of it in the apocalypse. Well, I mean, I still find those beer can pull tabs every now and again. And those things haven't been manufactured since 1980 because we all have the little pop tops now.
Yes,
and what's weird, when I started researching this bottle caps candy, and we'll get to, if anybody doesn't even know what I'm talking about yet, there's a whole recycling, speaking of cults, people who collect the little tabs on your soda cans and recycle them, and you can sell them by the weight. And you get X amount of dollars per pound of the aluminum. It's a much more concise way than to try and get your 5 cents back on your can. You still get your 5 cents back on your can, but then you can make extra money selling the little tabs to be melted back down to recycle.
You mean the tab that you actually have to tweak to get the can to open on the top that you put your finger through? Okay. Yeah.
That's actually a straw holder, by the way. Do you know that? If you fold it back forward, there's a hole in it, and you can put your straw down.
Are you kidding me? Is that true? Is that?
That is true. Yes.
Wow.
Mind blown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that you would need a straw holder. There's already a little hole that you put the straw through. Why would you need to bend it back?
Because the hole is too big and the straw just kind of rolls around. That holds your straw and keep it. And some
it's
people
still
don't
going to roll.
Put their lips.
It's not as big. It's bigger than a straw, though.
No, the little hole in the. Okay, forget it. We're going down a rabbit hole right here. So, anyways, anyone of a specific age will probably remember this candy.
I really loved bottle caps. I really did.
I want to say they're probably like a. Well, they're considered sweet tablet candies made to look like metal soda bottle caps.
Yeah, as you say, they're shaped like little bottle caps, the same constituency as like a sweet tart, right? Not the same taste, but the same kind of, it's a tablet.
It's like that tart, slightly sweet taste. They refer to them not wholly dissimilar to Smarties, Sweet Tarts, or even Runts.
Mm-hmm.
So for whatever reason, I kind of remember them being a little bit chewy, like a little bit gummy, but maybe that was a different candy.
Maybe they had a variety that was chewy, but I remember them being straight tablets that you had to
Chewy.
chew. But they had like a little ridges around the bottom of them. I remember.
Yes. So they literally look like a bottle cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Originally introduced by Breaker Confections in 1972, they came in grape soda, cola soda, orange, root beer, and lemon lime soda flavors.
Root beer was my favorite.
Right? Yes. Agreed. Root beer, my favorite.
Yep.
So, and they would come. They were originally packed in like this green pouch, and I don't remember that. So
I remember that. I actually remember the animation. It was like a living bottle cap with feet underneath it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's no longer the case now. Now it's like purple packaging, and you get like 24 pieces.
Is it still Breaker Confections?
No, actually, somewhere along the line, Willy Wonka took over production, and I did numerous research. I couldn't find the year that they took it out or that they took it over, but they produced it and they got rid of the lemon lime and replaced it with cherry. Mm-hmm. So you can no longer get lemon lime.
And you know what Wonka himself said to fans of lemon lime? You get nothing.
Good day, sir. I said good day. Oh, and during the same time, Wonka made fizzy bottle caps. So I think they were kind of riding on the hype train of Pop Rocks.
Or the fizzy lifting drinks?
Well, yeah. Well, 72. So the movie came out 75. Yeah. Yeah, but so they added an extra ingredient that made them fizz when you ate them. But guess who owns
So like Alka-Seltzer? Almost.
Ooh, they probably
more
look
so,
like, right. If you
more so than Pop Rocks?
Plop them right into your drink, they probably look just like that.
Yeah.
Would you actually put them in your soda to add extra?
Like I would not. No, I never attempted that. No.
I don't think I would either. I think just the fact that they look like bottle caps would, at some point, some kid picked up a regular bottle cap and probably tried to eat it. So, but now they are owned and sold by the Ferrara Candy Company.
Of course.
But so we kind of throw shade at Ferrara that they own all this stuff. But this news article I read, it's perfect since this candy company, and I'm talking about Ferrara, maintains many old brands that would otherwise likely no longer be sold. So you can look at them as like these saviors of some of these old time candies that probably would have gone by the wayside.
Yeah, I do realize that bottle caps are still out there because just for our show and our concession segment, whenever I try to go find something that I'm covering, I always see bottle caps. So I'm always surprised at some of these candies that I see still out there.
Yeah, so I actually found this as an online review on Ferrara's website of a consumer who recently purchased bottle caps. Sadly, not what they were. Bottle caps were one of my favorites as a kid. The manufacturer must have reformulated the recipe. These are terrible. Not at all what they were as a kid.
Oh.
The flavors are not the same at all, and the texture is unfavorably mushy. I feel like I was eating Tums or Rolaids.
Oh, that's too bad.
And apparently this review is pretty spot on because the original candy is twice the size of the current product that you can buy now. So they're no longer actual bottle cap size. They're probably closer to what a Sweet Tart is. And they reformulated the shape. So it has much less of an actual bottle cap design to it. And this all took place in 2009. They downsized them. They're probably easier to put in little, Smartie rolls or whatever. I guess they're really big during Halloween. They have like these little mini packs of 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's when they make all their money. Yeah, they no longer accurately resemble the shape of a real bottle cap. But you're right. My favorite was always root beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they still make that at least.
They do. Root beer is in there. So, all the original flavors are still there, except for that lemon lime, which was replaced by cherry.
I've got to go find a new... I'm curious as to what what they did with them now.
I know. It's sad though, because if you have fond memories of them and then you pop them in your mouth and you're like, it's not what I remember at all. So, but I almost went with Fruit Stripe gum, only because they just announced that they're discontinuing it.
Yeah, another one of these things where
maybe Ferraro will pick them up.
Maybe, yeah, but
we need to save the zebra gum.
I haven't seen that on the shelf for I don't know how long. So you'd have to go to a real specialty candy shop in order to even get your hands on that, I'm sure, before it was discontinued.
When I do research for a lot of this candy stuff, I go to oldtimecandy.com.
Okay.
And I think they spell time Tyme. And they do sell it, but it is now sold out. So apparently the minute they announced that it was being discontinued, people probably jumped on it.
Right.
So, that's the zebra gum.
Yes,
right?
It is. Yeah.
And they were all the same flavor. There were different colors, but I guess it was all the same flavor. And the big slight against it was that your flavor burst up front didn't last very long.
No.
Kind of came and went.
It was gone within like 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops.
I don't like gum. I don't chew gum. Gum is, I chew it for like 2 minutes and then I got to get rid of it.
With Fruit Stripe gum, I'd go through a pack in an hour because you chew it and the flavor gone and then you spit it out. Then you get the next piece. Yeah.
you want to keep that flavor going.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you pick up bottle caps, you got to let me know.
All right, I will. I will. Bottle caps. All right. So, do you want to do this?
I don't want to do this, to be honest with you. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I would never in a million years have chosen this movie to discuss, but here we are. So it takes place in 2024. So thematically, it makes sense. This is Highlander 2, originally referred to, the subtitle was The Quickening, which came out in 1991 and was a sequel to the 1996 movie Highlander. Directed by Russell Mulcahy.
Now, you said that you were going to go back and watch the original. Did you?
I did not. I didn't want to sully it. And I didn't have time. And now this is probably only the second time you've watched Highlander.
From beginning to end. Yes. Yeah.
That is a movie I can, you mentioned this on another episode. Oh, The Bride, where you can recite dialogue. That's a movie that I've seen numerous times. I saw it in the theater in college in 1986, blown away. And sadly, it was a flop. It did not do well in the theater. Only when it was released on VHS did it kind of establish and obtain. Yeah,
and obviously it became so popular that it warranted a sequel to be made. Now, I just want to point out
nobody wanted, by the way.
Now, I just want to point out some things about the original before we get into the discussion about the second one, just because I've watched it again. A few gaffes that I saw this time. Now, at one point, there's a newspaper headline that says 3 killed by mystery headhunter or 3 killed by headhunter. Okay. Only 2 have been actually beheaded at this point. Was a third filmed and cut out of the movie?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because there's the guy in the parking garage.
You're talking about the parking garage.
The parking garage.
Yeah, and the old man who did the backflips.
And then Kurgan kills that other Highlander that comes to New York and has that conversation with Christopher Lambert on the
They
bridge.
all refer to him as Lambert.
Yeah, Lambert.
In the featurettes. And I'm like, I thought it was Christophe Lambert.
Yeah.
No, it's Christopher Lambert.
So I only counted before the big showdown between Kurgan and McLeod. Okay. I only counted 2 people that were beheaded, but the paper said it was 3 that were beheaded. The other thing is that the wrestling match at the beginning is said to have taken place in Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, yes.
And when he comes out on the street and he's arrested, you see the Empire State Building down the street.
Okay, all right.
But they ask him in the police station, what were you doing in Jersey at a wrestling match?
Right, yeah.
Because it was actually filmed in the Meadowlands, not in Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
So I think they just confused their, between the script and where they actually were. And you can totally see the strings when they lift him up at the end for the.
Of course. No, we didn't have a rotoscope. We couldn't
I took notes at the very end of the first Highlander knowing that this was going to be important going into the second one, what the prize is, right?
Yeah,
what he gets.
Yes. Yeah.
So the prize is that you are at one with all living things. You can read everyone's minds and you can advise world leaders. They say this at the end of the first movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. While he's sitting with Brenda in the Highlands.
Yeah. And it's like, and she says, "Can you read my mind?" Yes, I can. I'm like, why would you want to be with somebody that can read your mind at any given moment? But anyway,
blood could read your mind.
So they set this up. So now he is not immortal anymore, that he's human, but he's given this vast knowledge and he can help the world.
Yeah.
Which does carry through, to be fair to Highlander. It's not just out of the blue that this plot occurs in Highlander 2.
No, but they definitely painted themselves into a corner. Nobody involved in the original movie thought they were going to make a sequel. This was a movie that just stands on its own. It was perfect. Boom, ending. There can be only one. I am that one.
Right.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it became this cult hit. Studios are like, we need a sequel. We got to make a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's like, I don't know. What do we do?
So at least they got him back on board, the original director.
They got Christophe Lambert on board. Russell Mulcahy came back, the director. And then
I'm going to go on a limb here. I found this entertaining.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's utter dog shit. And this is the better cut of the three versions that are out there.
The Renegade.
There are three versions of this movie. So the original Quickening, I don't know if you know the differences, what was changed for the Renegade.
Well, we have The Gathering, which was the gathering of all the immortals. And then we had The Quickening, which was what happens when he kills an immortal, right, and he gets there. So I just want to point out that I've experienced both The Gathering and The Quickening when I had food poisoning. So I know everything.
You are. You're the only one. Oh, this is a slap across the face to all Highlander fans up to this point.
Okay, so explain this to me. So what I am confused about, is
there's a lot of confusion.
So this Renegade cut. So at the beginning of this movie, you get this retro past kind of sci-fi landscape where you see McLeod and you see Ramirez.
Correct. Who in the first movie never knew each other. But apparently they do, because this flashback takes place before the events of the first movie. And you don't know if it's like the distant past, but you say to yourself, it can't be, because it looks like all this sci-fi stuff is going on behind them. Are they aliens or not? So after I watched the Renegade cut, I read a little bit into this, that the theatrical cut established that they were aliens. Any references to aliens are taken out of the Renegade cut, so I'm not sure who they're supposed to be in the Renegade cut. Just remember, they're from the past. Will you bring this up? But as soon as they go to the flashback, you see a spaceship in the desert. So that right there is like, wait a minute. So they are supposed, in the theatrical cut, they are supposed aliens from the planet Zeist.
The immortals that you see in Highlander are criminals from Zeist that are banished to Earth.
Yeah. So the way that it's reworked here, and again, this is the director's cut. We're going to talk on the back end because nobody was happy about this production whatsoever. It was a nightmare. Mulcahy was taken off the production. He was not allowed final cut.
But he had to agree to this story going into it.
But this is the studio made changes. Like Sean Connery's character was not meant to come back.
But he was there. But they had to have signed him on before they started making this movie.
No, they brought him back in. They paid him like $3.5 million. They wrote pages for him.
So this really isn't the director's cut then. So what did he plan on making?
But this is not giving Zack Snyder X amount of $1 million to go back and make the movie you wanted to make. This was the studio taking this away. So they filmed this in Argentina. And while they were in Argentina, and I think it was like a $2 million budget or whatever, Argentina's economy tanked. And overnight, everything became triple, quadruple priced. People, they couldn't get resources to make this movie because no one wanted to give them rent a crane that for $200 tomorrow, I could rent it to you for $2,000. Like it was chaos. Lambert actually tried to get out of this movie, but he was contractually obligated. He did have a relationship with Connery based on the first movie. They had a great relationship together. And so they wrote pages to bring in Sean Connery. And it went from like a glorified cameo to like, he's got 20 minutes of screen time going on.
I think he's maybe got more screen time than he did in the first movie.
Probably. It is a show because you see in the opening sequence, you see Christopher Lambert, Connor McLeod, and he is an old man and he's attending this opera.
Yes. So he is mortal. So that goes along with how the first one ended.
Yep. We do see this opening text that talks about industrial pollution has destroyed the ozone layer, leaving the planet at the mercy of the sun's ultraviolet rays. So we are now in the future because Highlander took place, well, it was filmed in 86. So you assumed it was around that time. So then now this is 35, 40 years later. And he's an old man and he's at this opera. And the nice thing about it, it's a nice callback because you get the exact same camera swing that goes through the stadium, just like you're talking about that opening shot of him in the wrestling match where it literally zooms around the stadium and then zeroes in on him sitting in his chair. Except this time he's passed out asleep watching this opera and immediately has a flashback. And I'm like, this guy's got some serious PTSD. Maybe you should be going to the opera. Because the guy had a sword and in the theatrical, they're aliens completely undoing everything that was established in the first movie. We're introduced to Michael Ironside, who is just having a field day.
He is, I gotta say, he's great in this movie. He is fantastic.
Did you read what he says about this movie?
No.
So, all right, I got to read this to you. And it's fantastic. And I think it explains a lot about where his brain was, or a lot of people. Okay, so this is a direct quote from him. It's a little long, but yeah, listen, I hated that script. We all did. Me, Sean, Chris, we were all in it for the money on this one. I mean, I read it as if it had been written by a 13-year-old boy, but I'd never played a barbarian swordsman before, and this was my first big evil mastermind type. I figured if I was going to do this stupid movie, I might as well have fun and go as far over the top as I possibly could.
And he does.
Yes, he does. All that eye rolling and foaming at the mouth was me deciding that if I was going to be in a piece of shit like this movie, I was going to be the most memorable thing in it. And I think I succeeded. And that's all you need to know. So in this version, they don't refer to them as aliens. They don't refer to the planet Zeist. Even though it seems that
they're from the very distant past and they're shooting them into the future.
So that's exactly what they're establishing. So it looks like Connery and Lambert's characters are part of a rebellion trying to overthrow Katana and the warlords that he answers to. And they get captured and they are banished into the future where they will not remember each other, but somehow they're connected because Ramirez, who is Connery, actually says to McLeod at one point, we'll find each other again.
And I also read somewhere, although I don't think this is ever established in the movie itself, that he's a wizard in this society. And that's how he can
I don't know. Well, I think
connection.
they're all immortal. So I think, but back to your point, which was all these people were banished into the future. You know, Ramirez went to Egypt. Obviously, Connor went to Scotland. And at some point, they'll all find each other again and they'll kill each other until you're just down to one. And then you can either choose, if you're the one, choose to go back to the past or stay where you are. It's stupid.
But that was never given to him as a choice at the end of the first time.
No, none of this is none of the lore that was established in the first movie. This is all made up crap after the fact to try and make this movie. I do find it funny that a character named Katana runs around with a broadsword, not an actual, katana. So that's the premise, is that's how they ended up where they were. So that's like the distant past and where we saw them. So their future, Ramirez made it sound like he was 800 years old at one point in the first movie. So, he lived in Egypt with Cleopatra and all these other people. But now we're in 2024. Now we're in the future where Connor's an old man. The world is shrouded in this shield,
which McLeod has invented, because this was part of his, vast intellect after he was given the prize.
And a lot of this is given to you in flashbacks. But even then, it's stupid because, like you said, he has he acquires all the world knowledge. And yet it's just him and one other guy who basically create this shield. Because the ozone layer is being depleted and people are dying. We actually see Brenda from the first movie in a flashback. She died from solar radiation.
So, which is a nice way of saying that we couldn't get the actress again, so we're going to kill off her character. Yeah.
No, yeah, that was another woman playing that role.
Yeah, it was obviously. I think it was that woman that threw him out of the village from the beginning of the first Highlander.
That would have been great.
I think it was, really. I think it was. It looked like her. It looked like her, yeah.
How could you tell she was all burnt up?
I thought that aspect was very interesting, that they did carry through with the prize element of the end of the first movie. So he does have this huge intelligence, and he did help world leaders and, solve this ozone problem. But it's now been taken over, this net, by this Skynet, this evil corporation.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's one pyramid and one satellite that's controlling this entire shield. And once you put up a shield to block solar radiation from coming through, wouldn't that just trap all the CO2 that we're emitting?
You would think.
And kill us all anyways?
Unless somehow it was malleable and stuff was coming in and come out of it.
I don't know. They don't even double down on any of that. They don't explain any of that whatsoever. Although I think I did see Don Johnson in the background seducing a woman in the opera scene there. Then Katana sends two of his porcupine assassins into the future to kill McLeod.
Yeah, Heckle and Jekyll, I call them.
Yes, yeah. Riding Marty's hoverboards.
So they send these two assassins to make McLeod choose whether to come back or not, or just to kill him because he never chose.
I don't know. Doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. I hate this movie.
So it's like a toss in from some Brazil type imagery here going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of Dune plus / Total Recall.
And you see a lot of strings, especially with the guy with the wings on his back.
And some of this fight sequence when the guy goes into the power box and blows up, it's just bad. It's really bad.
But I thought these guys were funny. I really did. So I was, again, entertained by this fight sequence because I don't have so much invested in the first movie.
Right.
Not being a super fan of it. So I'm like, okay, that's, I'll buy what you're telling me here.
And all it takes is for him to kill one of these guys, behead them in order for him to receive the quickening.
Well, because now he's no longer the only one. He should have been immortal as an old man then, rather than become youthful again, right?
And this is a nice reveal. Everything's blowing up or whatever, and he comes out of the fire like T2, and he's young. He's young Christopher Lambert again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. But I did read that when this came out, they were basically, I think it was either Back to the Future 2 was filming or right on the edge of being released. And they had to go back and kind of tweak these hoverboards so it didn't look exactly like what they were using in that movie. Yeah. But these guys got wings as well. Yeah, they're cool looking and it's fun. It's a nice little opening fight sequence kind of a thing. But at one point, he's on his knees and he screams out Ramirez's name. Ramirez has been dead since the 14th century.
Yeah, because Ramirez at the beginning of this movie says, all you have to do is call me and I'll be there. It's like the Jackson 5. So it's like suddenly you break into the Jackson 5. Well, does that mean if you can call Kurgan, he'll be there too?
No, because Clancy Brown claims that he was never paid for the first movie. So they offered him a cameo in this, and he's like, I want no part of it. I'm like, how'd you not get paid? How would you not get paid for that? Such an iconic role.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get this big fight sequence or whatever. But yeah, then we cut to somewhere in England during Hamlet, and all of a sudden Ramirez rematerializes complete with heads. And again, this is played for laughs because he walks right in the middle of the poor Yorick speech, and he doesn't realize he's in front of an audience
until he 5 minutes in, then he looks up. Oh, now I know what's going on.
But he's
here.
watching this guy talk to this skull, and he's like, "Sure, whatever your relationship is with this man is none of my affair." And then I'm like, "A gay joke? First thing out of your mouth is a gay joke." I'm like, "Farewell, dear shitheads." So it's funny, and I will say, watching him, Sean Connery is having a blast.
And then he looks in the mirror as I'm rather glad the magic works. He's
right
as he feels his neck.
So it doesn't seem like he knows who and where he is until he sees himself in the mirror, and then he kind of adjusts his neck, like, oh, my head fit back on.
So okay, so here's my question. Saying this as somebody that actually enjoyed this movie, so you're telling me that Connor and Ramirez were banished from this past society and thrust forward as immortals,
right?
How was Connor McLeod born into the McLeod name then? How is he even a McLeod?
It's a good question. I'm telling you, this movie's crap. This movie makes no sense. And I'm not even going to get involved. You pointed out some gaps in the first movie. There are so many continuity errors and crap because they are cutting and repasting some of this stuff to try and make sense and to eliminate all the idea that these guys are aliens from the theatrical release. It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. Mulcahy actually got up and walked out of the premiere 15 minutes in.
It took him that long?
Yeah. Well, I think once I had the opening battle and he realizes that they're going to be aliens, he's like, I don't want any of this. What's going on here? So now we got young Connor. He's back, and immediately, and he's introduced to Virginia Madsen, who we know from Candyman.
Yes.
And she's like some environmental terrorist. She works for this company Cobalt, but we never see them again. We don't hear anything about them. They don't
because now she's just alone with Connor, but her group knows, and that's why they're called terrorists, because they're trying to work against the evil corporation who wants to continue making money off of this net thing. They think that the sky is actually fine, that the ozone layer is back and we don't need the net anymore. And so this Cobalt spends all their time trying to bring down the net. And so she convinces Connor that this, even though he is the one that built it, that's no longer needed.
Yeah. And there's his buddy Alan, this older gentleman. They're the only two that, or even like Alan at one point, he's like, oh, the atmosphere is fine. It's just above the shield. I was like, there's one satellite up there. What happens if that satellite breaks down? Can you go through the shield? Mm. And then the shield emits this reddish glow. So everything's got there's no, although when we see Ramirez at one point, when he goes into the tailors, it's daytime.
Yeah.
So, and that drives me nuts because he's looking at himself in the cameras. And then the guy walks in between him and the cameras and assaults him. And he's not on the cameras at all. You don't see that guy. I'm like, what?
I think that could have been its own movie. Ramirez is like a Crocodile Dundee trying to.
Yeah, basically. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is nice to know. And we do get little tiny snippets of some of the Queen soundtrack.
Yeah. And it's just making you miss that great music that was in the first movie.
I did read this was released the same month that Freddie Mercury died.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a scene where outside the opera house, so she puts the little coin, a jukebox was playing one of the Queen songs.
Kind of Magic that was being played.
And then later you do get the Who Wants to Live Forever when she finds all of his. There's a lot of beats that go back to the original. The scene where he's racing around in the car was very reminiscent of Kurgan with the car and the old lady. Like I said, the camera swing shot in the opening sequence.
Let me
But
tell you,
it's
just watching the original again right after The Bride and seeing these two Clancy Brown performances, they could
yes.
not be more different.
No, I know. This guy's unsung hero out there.
Yeah.
So, but I did laugh because the minute that Connor is young again, he immediately takes Virginia Madsen's character and just nails her. And I'm like, there can be only 1 minute because he doesn't last very long. I mean, he's like Don Johnson over here. So it borders on RoboCop-esque shtick at
Because
points.
there's that one commercial, the psychic cook. Yeah.
Obviously, the 2 porcupine guys are killed. And Katana is watching all this on a computer screen in the past. And he's like, well, if you got to, get anything done, you got to do it yourself.
And it says on the computer screen 2024, like he can just zero into any year that he wants to.
Right. I did see on the train. So he shoots himself into the future.
Oh, this train sequence is insane. This is probably
it is gory. There's people
far and away the highlight of this movie. The baby gets smushed. Do you see that?
I have it on good authority. Metro North cannot go 600 plus miles an hour. But he has a field, but he crashes down. He did his own stunt. The stuntman was fired for doing cocaine. So Michael Ironside's like, I'll do it. Just throw me through the ceiling. So he did that stunt himself. And that guy was watching Godzilla. Did you catch that?
He was watching Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
Yeah. So while this is all going on, this is where I think Connor goes to find his buddy Alan, who still works for the corporation, but secretly thinks that the shield is they can go beyond it.
But let me just go back to this train sequence.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Because Ironside, talking about Ironside just hamming it up, like the facial expressions on this guy as the train goes from 300 miles an hour to 400. I was laughing out loud at this scene.
Yeah, because it's so absurd.
And so it's established that there's a baby in a carriage in the train as a passenger.
That carriage looks like from 1956, by the way. That is not what.
Once the train hits like 500 or 550, then the passengers start to float in the air.
Eyeballs are bulging out.
The baby, you see like a little fake baby float in the air and smash against the back of the train.
It is so stupid.
But the train, when it finally like hits the end of the line and breaks through the wall, it doesn't look like it's going at 700 miles an hour when it breaks through the wall. It's like
no. It just kind of like pink. Yeah, and even that's pretty silly.
And Ramirez watching the safety video on the plane of the plane.
Right, so he goes into the tailor, and the guy's like, I want to shoot. And he's like, sir, those take weeks. I ain't got no time. So he gives him his little earring. How do you know that's not even fake? And it wasn't even an earring. It was a clip-on. Who's wearing clip-on earrings in Egypt? So, but again, it's a fun sequence of them, he's sitting there smoking his cigar and drinking scotch while they're measuring him for his suit. Sir, the car will take you to the airport. Yeah, well, you said you were about to travel far. You need to take a plane. Yeah, you didn't know what that is.
Yeah.
So he's on the plane and he's hitting. Did you hear what he says to the woman next to him? He says, dark-haired ladies like to shit on men's faces. And I'm like, oh, you dirty old man.
He didn't say that.
Yes, he does. Go back and watch it when he's talking to the brunette next to him. All the pretty women. And I'm like, this is just Connery playing Connery. But then he looks so cool. I'm sorry, I'm swearing. With his hair, the ponytail. I love that character.
He did. You could tell he was having a blast.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was only 9 days. He got paid like $3.5 million for 9 days. Sure.
Yeah.
But what drives me nuts is, all right, so Kurgan kills him. In the first movie, he dies. He gets beheaded by Kurgan. In the 14th century, in Scotland. He comes back now in the future, 2024. He meets up again with McLeod. And the first thing he doesn't ask is, hey, did you kill all those other guys? Are you the only one now? Like nothing.
Right. Well, I assume you're the only one.
Yeah. What happened to that guy? who killed me and raped your woman. A technician died on the set in that scene where McCloud goes into that warehouse looking thing and the guy falls. The guy gets pushed off, like he's dangling on the road.
Oh, yeah, the taxi driver. That
I was like, was that the technician?
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, that sequence where they break into the prison and they are just riddled with bullets. Riddled. I think they're joking that they each had 100 bullet holes in them. And I'm like, can we just get up and walk away? Meanwhile, she was hiding in the trunk and never took a single bullet.
Nope.
That car was just decimated. But so Katana goes to the corporate boardroom. And yeah, again, very RoboCop-ish, throwing the guy out the window, the whole bit. But he makes an NFL drafting joke. I'm like, you're an immortal from the past. Are you just sitting there watching the future on TV?
Yeah, you probably can. You can see anything on those TVs.
It's just weird pop culture references that are thrown in there. So they go to break out Alan. Alan's beat up and he, expounds whatever coordinates they need to find the weak point in the shield or something. And then he dies. But they're trying to escape, and all of a sudden they're like in this Temple of Doom booby trap. And all I can think of is like in Galaxy Quest where Sigourney Weaver's like, what the hell is this thing doing here? It's just like one of those fire stampers. It's a giant blade that's coming down to kill them. What is the purpose of this thing?
Yeah.
Why is it there? But then he's like, oh no, I'll take care of this. And then and that's where I think you said he does like some magic thing to lift it up, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it was like the fizzy lifting drinks again, bringing that into it. That chamber.
Yes. Yeah, and we're just trying to remove the shields. This is total recall.
Just call me again, Connor, and I will be there.
So if you got another sequel, they actually refer to Highlander 3 as the apology.
And as he's dying, they're playing Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. He's not even Scottish in this movie. He's supposed to be.
He's Egyptian.
Oh, yes, that's right. He's Egyptian. Yeah. But yeah, the scene where they're getting riddled with bullets again in slow motion is just hilarious. I just was laughing at that.
It is so over the top. And of course, the doctor, she's fine, hiding in the back of the trunk. And all the cars look like they came from like 1962. There's nothing futuristic about this at all.
So Katana gets run over by the truck, and
he gets run over the truck, and then because they run him over as they're escaping the prison. And
okay,
like, so outstanding.
Yeah,
she's like, outstanding. You just killed the guy, and he just walks back to the headquarters.
So then they climb up the inside of a mountain and come out above the net.
Yeah.
So to establish that the atmosphere is fine.
Again, this is like the ending of Total Recall when you get the air purifier back online to bring in oxygen to the rest of the world. I think all these people who were raised underneath this shield would have freaked out. All of a sudden it goes away. So there's a third cut of this that is referred to as a special edition. I've never seen it, but on the featurette, it was showing, and I watch this on YouTube as well, where they changed all of the red glow of the shields to more of a bluish green hue. And I'm like, why? I don't know. I don't think it changes this movie in any way, shape, or form, but he gets there, and Ramirez, you're literally playing a voiceover of Ramirez saying, only the two of you can defeat this. And then Condor steps in by himself. She's just standing there. She's not doing anything.
But so what happens at the end? Do they go back to the past? Or do they?
No, they live in the.
Oh, they live in the. That's right.
Because that was his choice. Yeah. I don't know.
But he does actually say, well, when he actually does behead Katana, for good at the end, he does say that line again. Yeah, can be.
But that's not true. Right. But it's not true at all.
At least until they send somebody back from
Mario Van Peebles shows up in the third one.
Yeah. So now I'm going to have to watch the third one.
Oh, well, this is also, I think, right around this time is when the TV show, because I never watched the TV show, but it was supposed to be McCloud, and he didn't want to commit. So they created a new character, Duncan, and Connor does come in, it kind of literally passes the torch, the sword, onto this new character. And they just, all subsequent movies and TV shows just completely disregard this. They don't even bring it up. It's not mentioned ever again.
I did find an interview with Russell Mulcahy where he talks about this briefly. Highlander 2 was basically a mistake. The original film had been written as a one-piece story, not with a franchise in mind. When it became a hit in Europe, they wanted a sequel. I was signed on by my agent without my even knowing.
Oh, no, that's even worse.
There are a number of different cuts out there, but whatever version you're talking about, the story is a real stretch.
It's true.
In a genre film, you can create any scenario you like, but once you break your own rules, the audience feels betrayed, which is what happened with Highlander 2.
I feel betrayed. Mulcahy does not owe me an apology. Although I will tell you on the DVD, because I have the Renegade DVD, and there's a featurette, and there's no animosity. You don't hear them, obviously they're all praising this movie and how much fun it was to work together again in the production or whatever. But yeah, it was a nightmare. First day of filming, Lambert insisted that they use real swords. So you're already talking about 40-pound broadswords that you can barely lift, let alone, do fight sequences with. Immediately cut half his thumb off and had to have 12 stitches. So during the dome battle between Katana and McLeod, dislocated Ironside's jaw. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, Mulcahy lost final edit of the theatrical release, and it sounded like the bank was more in charge than anything. It was a mishmash to begin with. So I don't know. You asked, what was the original scripts? Where were they going? Is there additional footage out there? I mean, 3 cuts of this movie. I mean, now you're talking like Ridley Scott with Blade Runner. How many cuts of that movie can we have?
Right.
But there is an alternate ending, which was released in European theaters, where Louise and Connor magically returned to Zeist at the end of the movie after they broke the shield. And they embrace in front of a field of stars, transform into light streaks, and fly off into space. Stop.
Audiences were not having it. At a budget of $34 million, it made 15 back at the box office.
I saw it in the theater.
You did?
I did. I was first in line, and boy, I'm still mad about it.
Oh.
Roger Ebert named this the worst movie of 91. So that's all you gotta say.
Of only 91. That's kind, right?
It might have held up. It might be on his worst movies of all time list. So even these director edits, this cut, can't save this movie. It's unfortunate. One and done. There can be only one, the original Highlander.
There's a nice quote from Den of Geek. This is a film that wishes it could be as good as Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Oh, I feel like
but again, I not having so much invested in the first one.
And I'm thrilled that you actually enjoyed yourself. There's entertaining elements of it, but it's so out of place compared to the first movie.
So say, if I were to rate them both, because I watched them back to back.
Yep.
I don't know what I gave Highlander the first time we covered it. You'd have to go back and listen to that one. But
right.
As of right now, I would give the first one 4 buckets out of 5, and this one 3 buckets out of 5.
Okay. You probably had more fun watching this movie.
Yeah, this one I like. Again, there was some laugh out loud.
Highlander does tend to take itself a little seriously, but I do love that movie. I love everything about it. This one is just it's farcical. It is. The tone is all over the place. Yeah, the Connery scenes are great, Ironside, but it just doesn't fit. And that's, unfortunately, I have to compare it to the original. If you're going to make a sequel, yeah. 1.5 buckets.
1.5.
1.5.
All right. So we've covered it. It's done.
We never have to talk about this again.
So what else did we do this week?
I think we're actually I didn't do much. I did watch the final episode of Monarch, but I think maybe we're gonna do a special.
Yeah, we're gonna cover that one on its own.
Yeah. So
I finally caught
hopefully-
up. I watched something that you've already watched, Willy's Wonderland.
Oh, yes.
And I thought it was superior to both Five Nights at Freddy's and to the Banana Splits movie. I really liked it. It was a straight horror movie, much more than those other two were. So,
Yes.
and it's got a very offbeat performance. Not that any of his performances are in beat, but by Nicolas Cage, because he doesn't speak.
I was going to
at
say,
all
when you don't
in the
utter
movie.
a single line of dialogue, hey.
And I wonder if that was a choice on his part, if the character actually did have dialogue in the script, or
He's like, I could just do that with my eyes. I don't need to actually verbalize my feelings.
But it's basically the same plot
It is
as Five Nights at Freddy's. It just got to the big screens first.
Nice. Willy's Wonderland. Now is that where is that streaming?
That is on Prime at the moment.
Okay.
It was on Freevee, so I had to watch it with commercials, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the way it's all going.
Yeah.
I know you're not a sports guy, but one of the playoff games was exclusive on Peacock the other day, and people were like losing their freaking minds. Because you either had a subscription, or I think you could pay $4.99 to just watch that playoff game.
Right.
But from what I'm seeing, it was like one of the highest streaming things ever. I was like 23 million people or something.
Wow.
Yeah. So future of NFL right there, my friends. Whether you like it or not, this is the way it's going. So next episode.
Next time we're going back into the theater, because this looks very intriguing. Looks very funny.
I think I can actually get my wife into the theater to go see this.
Argyle.
Now, is Argyle is the name of the character. This looks very Romancing the Stone / Lost City.
So this is by the same director as Kick-Ass, is it not?
Vaughn?
Yeah, Matt Vaughn.
You're right, because they bring up the Kingsman up front. You're right. Yeah. I think this looks fun. I think this looks like a lot of fun. I love Sam Rockwell.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was in it. Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, as you said, Henry Cavill. We haven't seen him since.
Who actually looks like he's having fun in this as well.
Yep. Yeah. Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara. So
a big cast.
Samuel L. Jackson, John Cena is in there too. So it looks good.
Okay.
Plus, it's got a cat in a suitcase. So we would love to see
this cat looks very CG, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So my thought was, since this is about a fictional character that is real or becomes real, that's what it looks like from the trailers anyway.
Yes.
Let's go in that direction and take a look at the old Stephen King thriller, The Dark Half.
I don't know. The Dark Half or Calf?
The Dark Half.
That's so it's not like an evil cow?
No, it is not an evil half. No.
I don't know this at all.
So it is about a horror author, of course, right? Who has a pseudonym that comes alive.
Richard Bachman?
If it were about Stephen King, yes, it would be Richard Bachman.
Everything's about Stephen King.
Yeah.
When did this movie come out? This is not even ringing a bell.
This came out in 1993. Timothy Hutton stars in the lead here.
Oh, that right there shows you 90s. The Dark Half.
Directed by George A. Romero of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead fame. Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be nice to revisit this one.
Okay. Well, just like Boy and His Dog, this will be the first time I'm seeing this.
All right. So yeah, we'll have to search it out, see where we can get our hands on it.
Let's hope it's available somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until then.
Yes. Thank you for listening, as always.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll be talking to you.
All right. Goodbye. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
Ruh-roh. Rick, there's a woman over there.